In terms of entertainment, there is no denying that violence plays a major role in modern society. Most hit movies and many television shows are laden with violence, and the overwhelming majority of video games are based on how many kills the player can get. This trend doesn't just apply to fictional stories either, as most of you reading this probably know that true crime media, which is overwhelmingly violence-based, has become an extremely popular form of entertainment over the last 20 years. Of course, many people argue that the trend has gone too far, insisting that life has begun to imitate art. They further argue that modern media has even gone so far as to glamorize criminals, especially serial killers. Although the argument may seem outlandish at face value, a closer look shows that in fact there has been considerable glamorization or even fetishization of serial killers in the last 20 years. One only has to look at films such as Natural Born Killers or the Hannibal Lecter franchise to see serial killers portrayed as misunderstood and wronged people, or as sophisticated geniuses who happen to be sociopaths. There is no doubt that some people watch these movies wishing to be Mickey and Mallory or Hannibal Lecter. In 2017, two Australian women named Jemma Lilley and Trudi Lenon made their bid to be a successful serial killer duo. The women lived in their own fantasy worlds where serial killers were revered and everyone else was reviled. Lilley and Lenon dreamed of committing numerous murders, but when they finally put their fantasies into action, they realised that while killing may be easy, getting away with murder was an entirely different story that they never truly contemplated. To an outsider, it would seem at first glance that Jemma Lilley and Trudi Lenon had little in common. At 26, Lilley was much younger than 43-year-old Lenon, who was a mother of 3, and she was also much better looking, but the two shared a similar outlook on life. Essentially, Lilley and Lenon were two lost souls living on the edges of society. It is quite possible that either of the women could have gone on to lead productive lives if they had never met. However, their dark personalities and deviant desires seemed to play on and feed off of each other. To the greater society, Lenon in particular presented a carefully crafted facade of a normal, law-abiding person. She was the mother of 3 children and in 2017 was attending university at Kwinana College in the Perth, Australia metropolitan area. She was not necessarily known for being a great scholar, but she was helpful to the other students and her professors. But when Lenon was not in school and her motherly duties were done for the day, she became Corvina. Corvina was the alias Lenon developed for her nighttime romps in Perth's underground bondage and sadomasochism, or BDSM scene. She made contacts in the scene through friends and on the internet in the late 1990s and early 2000s, and by 2017 she was a regular in many of the clubs and local hookup spots. People in the BDSM scene play different roles, with most choosing to either be a dominant or dom, or a submissive, or sub during their activities. Lenon played the role of a sub in the bedroom, and as it turned out, she was also quite submissive in other aspects of her life, especially when it came to her relationship with Lilley. Like Lenon, Lilley preferred to live in her own ultra-violent fantasy world. As a child, Lilley showed little ambition or interest in anything such as sports or academics, but she did develop a love for fiction, especially stories that involved serial killers. After graduating from high school, Lilley went on to work full-time at a department store in Perth, but in her spare time she spent most of her time writing and editing a book she began during her teen years. The book didn't have much of a plot, and instead followed the exploits of the main character, named SOS, who spent most of her free time killing people. Lilley fashioned her serial killer character into an anti-hero, and according to her friends, she began to take on the persona of the character. Similar to her older friend, Lilley assumed a nickname, going by the moniker SOS. She created an alternate world for herself and began to obsess on social media about murder. After meeting Lenon, the two women became very close, possibly romantic, as one text from Lenon, later retrieved by the police, stated that she would be Lilley's sub and do whatever she wanted. Jemma Lilley wanted to kill. As the women's relationship developed deeper, the talk of murder and serial killings became commonplace on their Facebook accounts. In one message, Lilley said that she wanted to record her first kill before the age of 25, and that at some point she wanted to go on a slaughterfest. SOS lavished the attention Corvina gave her, but was always quick to point out exactly how dangerous she was. "My mind is the darkest being you will ever be laying your life in the hands of," Lilley once texted Lenon. Eventually, Lenon moved into Lilley's house, and the two began planning their momentous first kill. After carefully researching different serial killers and their tactics, SOS determined that an organised murder would be best. It would probably take place at her house where she could control the environment. She also knew that since she and Corvina were women, they would have to use subterfuge to kill their possibly physically stronger quarry. They went on several outings to buy supplies for their diabolical plot. They bought 100 litres of hydrochloric acid if they wanted to eliminate any trace of their victim, and some concrete tiles if they chose to bury him. The two women next had to find a victim. Since they were both women, and Lilley was young and relatively attractive, they probably could have found some anonymous guy on the streets who would come back to their place, but instead they made their first big mistake. They chose a victim known to Lenon. Lenon focused her search on 18-year-old Aaron Pajic, who was friends with her adult son. She also knew Pajic from her college classes, which is where the investigators believe she first began to assess his suitability as the murderous duo's first victim. Pajic was diagnosed with autism, although he was fairly functional and able to attend college. With that said, Pajic's autism meant that he still inhabited a child's world, according to prosecutor James McTaggart. McTaggart believes that Pajic's autism is largely why he was chosen as a victim. Lenon approached Pajic in the school and invited him to spend the evening with her and Lilley at their house on June 13, 2017. The details concerning how Pajic was enticed to go there alone are not clear, but the possibility of sex may have played a role. Pajic gladly accepted the invitation, having nothing to fear since he was friends with Lenon's son and considered Lenon a friend. Pajic couldn't have been more wrong. The evidence shows that not long after arriving at Lilley's house, Pajic was attacked. One of the women garroted the young man, while the other stabbed him twice in the chest and once in the neck. For whatever reason, the women decided not to use the hydrochloric acid to dispose of Pajic's body. They probably forgot to buy proper gloves, and masks needed to do such a thing. But whatever the reason, or reasons, they decided to go with Plan B and bury Pajic in their backyard. They dug a fairly deep hole, dumped Pajic into it, and then poured concrete over the body. Once the concrete set, they used the tiles. The tiling job was bad, but it did the trick and probably would have concealed their crime indefinitely if it were not for their loose lips and the fact that Pajic was missed by his family and friends. As Pajic's friends and family grew worried after his disappearance, Lilley couldn't help but brag to people about killing him. Within 2 weeks, both Lilley and Lenon were arrested and charged with first-degree murder. The evidence against the women was overwhelming. Pajic's body was found at their residence, and there were numerous social media and text messages Lilley and Lenon sent each other before and after the crime, which implicated them. The only defence either one had was to place the blame on the other, which they both did, but to no avail. Jemma Lilley and Trudi Lenon were found guilty of first-degree murder in November 2017 and sentenced to a minimum of 28 years in prison. For Lenon, the sentence is very likely a life sentence, which has not started well for her. She has already endured a couple of attacks at the hands of other inmates. Sharon Pajic. Aaron's mother has no sympathy for the pair and believes that anything bad that happens to them is righteous retribution. "You can't get it out of your head, and it will be a lifetime for me," said Pajic. "They deserve everything they get for what they've done." Hey friends, thank you for listening to today's story. Make sure to click the notification icon to stay updated on all future narrations. I release new videos twice every day at 10 AM and 8 PM Eastern Time. If you have a story to share, please send it to the email displayed on the screen. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like and leave an encouraging comment. It really helps me keep bringing you more narrations like this. If you'd like to support the channel even more, you can get early access to all future narrations and bonus content over on Patreon. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.